The galaxy was watching. Every decade, the mighty Varix Empire hosted a brutal event known as the Trial of Species, a competition where champions from every world fought to prove their race's strength. The arenas were massive rings of metal and light, floating above planets surrounded by millions of alien spectators. It was not only about glory, it was about power. The winning species earned respect. The losing ones were treated as weak and disposable. Among the many alien warriors gathered that year, one figure stood out, not because of strength, but because of how ordinary he looked. His name was Elias Trent, the youngest human ever sent to fight. He was just 20 years old. Compared to the towering reptilians, the insectoid warlords, and the armored beasts from the fire worlds, Elias looked like a child lost in a nightmare. The aliens laughed when they saw him. "Is this what humans send?" one hissed in a high voice. "He looks like a softling," another sneered, clicking its mandibles. Maybe they ran out of real soldiers. Elias ignored them. He stood alone on the cold metal floor, wearing simple armor scratched from old battles. His weapon, a steel baton that could extend into an energy blade, hung at his side. He looked small, but his eyes burned with focus. Above the arena in the royal balcony sat Princess Xylera of the Varix Dominion. She was tall and elegant, her skin like silver glass and her eyes glowing with faint blue light. She watched the fighters with curiosity, especially the human. Varix nobles had called humans primitive apes for centuries, yet something about the young man's calm made her pause. The opening match began. Elias's first opponent was a Dravak warrior, a reptilian giant twice his size, holding a plasma axe that could cut through steel. The crowd roared as the Dravak charged forward, slamming the ground so hard that the arena trembled. Elias rolled aside at the last second, the axe barely missing his head. He didn't fight like the others. While alien fighters charged straight in, Elias studied his opponent. Every breath, every motion, he read them like a soldier who had learned through experience, not pride. When the Dravak swung again, Elias ducked under, activated his baton, and struck the creature's wrist with a sharp electric burst. The Dravak screamed. The crowd gasped. Elias didn't stop. He used the broken arena wall to jump, kicked the reptilian in the jaw, and when the monster stumbled, Elias jammed the baton into the exposed armor joint and released a surge of energy. The Dravak fell to the ground, twitching, smoke rising from his armor. Silence. Then, the entire arena erupted in noise. Some cheered, some hissed in disbelief. A human, a tiny human, had defeated a warrior 3 times his size. Elias just stood there, breathing hard. He didn't raise his arms or shout. He simply said, "Next." Over the next few hours, the fights continued. One by one, Elias faced alien champions. He fought a 4-armed insectoid that could climb walls, a crystal beast that reflected energy weapons, and a telepath that tried to break his mind. Each time, the human found a way to win. He didn't rely on brute strength. He used adaptation, timing, and strategy. He turned alien arrogance against them. By the 5th match, the crowd had stopped mocking him. They started chanting, "Human! Human! Human!" From her balcony, Princess Xylera leaned forward. For the first time in years, she felt something unusual, curiosity mixed with excitement. The Varix Empire had conquered dozens of races, yet no one had ever fought like this. Humans were supposed to be weak, emotional, and unrefined, yet this boy fought like someone who understood war on a deeper level. Her royal advisor, a pale alien named Kareth, noticed her attention. "My princess," he said softly, "it is only luck. The human fights like a desperate animal. Soon he will fall." "They always do," Xylera didn't reply. Her gaze stayed fixed on the young fighter. Elias's final match of the day was against Vorak the Unbroken, a cyborg warrior whose entire body was half metal, half flesh. Vorak had won the last 3 tournaments. He towered over Elias, his arms thick with heavy armor, his voice like grinding iron. "You have spirit, little one," Vorak growled. "But spirit will not stop a blade." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but maybe my brain will." The match began with a blast of sound. Vorak charged, blades spinning from his arms. Elias dodged and rolled, sparks flying as metal scraped the floor. The human stayed low, avoiding every direct hit. He noticed something. The cyborg's right knee moved slower. A damaged servo. That was the weakness. Elias threw his broken baton aside and grabbed a fallen spear from another match. He lured Vorak toward a broken wall panel where sparks burst from damaged wires. At the right moment, Elias leaped aside, kicked Vorak's bad knee, and shoved the spear into the exposed power cable. The surge exploded. Vorak screamed as electricity flooded his armor. The cyborg dropped, smoke rising from his body. The crowd was stunned again. Elias stumbled to his knees, his armor burned and his body trembling, but he had won. The announcer shouted, "Victory! Human Elias Trent of Earth wins the trial." For a long moment there was silence. Then slowly thousands of aliens began to cheer. The word spread across the arena and into the galaxy's broadcast waves. A human had conquered the first round of the trial of species. Up in her balcony, Princess Xylera stood. Her advisors turned to her, expecting her to end the match to order the next fighters. Instead, she raised a hand for silence. Her eyes glowed brighter, her voice clear and powerful across the arena's sound system. She pointed directly toward the blood-stained floor, toward Elias Trent. Her voice echoed, "He will be mine." The crowd fell silent again. Even Elias froze, confused. The guards turned in shock, their eyes wide. Kareth, the advisor, whispered urgently, "Princess, what are you doing? He is a human. A lower species. The council will—" But she didn't care. For the first time in her life, Princess Xylera had seen something that no amount of royal training or ancient law could explain. This fragile creature from a small blue world had done what the galaxy's greatest warriors could not. He had fought with heart, intelligence, and something more. Soul. Down in the arena, Elias wiped the sweat from his face and looked up at the balcony. He didn't bow. He didn't even smile. He just met her gaze, defiant and unafraid. For that one instant, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The mighty Verex Empire had no idea that history had just changed, not because of power, not because of technology, but because one alien princess had pointed to a human and declared, "He will be mine." The morning after the tournament, the city of Verex Prime was alive with rumors. Every news screen, every alien broadcast, every whisper in the royal corridors spoke about one thing: the human who had survived the trial of species. In the royal palace, among towers of crystal and walls that shimmered like liquid glass, Princess Xylera sat on her throne. Her expression was calm, but inside she felt restless. She kept seeing that moment again and again, the human standing in the arena covered in dust and blood, looking at her without fear. That defiance burned into her memory. Elias Trent woke up in a soft, glowing room. The bed felt like a cloud and the air smelled faintly of metal and flowers. His armor was gone, replaced by simple white robes. His body ached, but the pain told him one thing: he was still alive. The last thing he remembered was the princess pointing at him and saying those strange words, "He will be mine." He sat up quickly, scanning the room. A pair of alien guards stood by the door, tall and armored, holding plasma rifles. Their faces were hidden behind masks. Elias frowned. "So, am I a guest or a prisoner?" The guards didn't answer. One pressed a button and the door opened silently. A voice echoed through a hidden speaker. "Human Elias Trent," the voice said in a smooth, almost musical tone. "The princess commands your presence." Elias sighed. "Yeah, I figured she would." The guards led him through long, shining hallways. Every wall pulsed faintly with light. The palace looked more like a living creature than a building. Strange alien paintings decorated the corridors. Wars, conquests, stars burning. The Verex people clearly loved power and perfection. When they reached the throne chamber, the doors opened wide. There she was, Princess Xylera, sitting on her elevated throne, surrounded by advisors and soldiers. Her silver skin reflected the lights around her like a mirror. Her blue eyes glowed softly as she watched him approach. Elias stopped halfway, his hands at his sides. "You wanted me. Here I am," he said. "Now what?" The advisors gasped at his tone. One of them, the tall alien Kareth, stepped forward angrily. "Human, you stand before royalty. You will bow." Elias tilted his head. "I don't bow to people who point at me like I'm property." The room fell silent. For a second, it seemed like the guards would attack him. But the princess raised her hand slightly and everyone froze. Then she stood and slowly walked down the steps toward him. Her voice was calm but curious. "You are different," she said. "Most beings tremble when they see me. But you," she paused, "you challenge me." Elias shrugged. Where I come from, respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. That answer made her pause. Her glowing eyes narrowed, but not in anger, in thought. She turned to her guards. Leave us. All of you. The advisors looked shocked, but they obeyed. Soon the massive chamber was empty, except for Elias and the princess. Scilyra studied him quietly for a moment. You fascinate me, human. Your kind entered the galactic stage only 100 years ago, yet you fight as if you've been at war forever. Elias smiled slightly. That's because we have. Our history is full of wars, struggles, and survival. We had to fight everything, nature, ourselves, and sometimes the universe itself. The princess tilted her head. You fight even when you cannot win? Elias looked straight into her glowing eyes. Especially then. That simple answer hit her harder than any speech could. She turned away and walked slowly toward the window that showed the city below. Ships flew through the air, lights twinkling like stars. On my world, she said softly, failure is shame. Weakness is punished. We do not understand fighting when victory is impossible. Elias crossed his arms. Then maybe that's why you don't understand humans. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy but strange, neither hostile nor friendly, just full of curiosity. In the following days, Elias wasn't kept in a cell. Instead, he was given a small suite inside the palace. Guards still watched him, but he was free to walk in certain areas. Scilyra visited him often. At first, it was only to ask questions about Earth, its history, and its wars. She learned about humans surviving ice ages, crossing oceans in wooden ships, and landing on their moon. She was especially interested in human emotions. Fear, sadness, hope, she repeated one day. We have removed such things from our kind. We believe emotion weakens logic, Elias laughed. That's funny. We believe emotion is what makes logic worth having. That answer puzzled her. She wrote it down in her data tablet as if studying a new species. Sometimes they argued, sometimes they laughed. Slowly, a strange friendship began to grow. Scilyra found herself looking forward to his words, his questions, and even his sarcasm. He was unlike any alien she had ever met. But not everyone in the palace was pleased. Her advisor, Kareth, grew suspicious. He whispered to other nobles that the princess was being manipulated by the human. Some wanted Elias removed quietly. He is dangerous, Kareth said during a private council meeting. Humans spread chaos wherever they go. They infect order with emotion. The Emperor himself, Scilyra's father, heard of it. He sent a short message from the Imperial Corps. Observe him. Learn what you can. But do not forget, humans are tools, not equals. Scilyra deleted the message. One night, Scilyra entered Elias's room unannounced. He was sitting on the floor working on a small device made from scraps of alien tech. What are you doing? She asked. Elias looked up. Fixing your training droid. It's got a flaw in its combat programming. It repeats patterns. Her eyebrows rose. You know our code language? I learned enough watching your engineers, he said casually. Your systems are good, but you rely too much on predictability. She moved closer. And what would you do differently? Elias looked up, meeting her gaze. I'd teach it to think, to adapt. Like a human. For the first time, the princess smiled. Not the polite royal smile she used for the court, but a real one. You speak as if you could improve an empire. Elias shrugged. Maybe I could. That night, Scilyra stayed longer than she planned. They spoke about strategy, philosophy, and the cost of victory. By the time she left, something in her heart had changed. She didn't see him as a subject anymore, but as an equal. The next day, she decided to test him. In the palace's holographic war room, she showed Elias the simulated battle plans of the Varex fleet. These strategies have protected our empire for centuries, she said proudly. Elias studied the glowing maps, then pointed to several zones. You've got blind spots here, here, and here. If I were your enemy, I'd attack through this nebula. You'd lose half your ships before you even realized. The generals who stood nearby laughed angrily. A human dares to question our tactics. But Scilyra silenced them. Explain, she said to Elias. He did. In 5 minutes, he showed them 3 flaws in their battle design that none of their strategists had ever noticed. When he finished, the room was silent. Scilyra looked at her stunned officers. Do as he says, she ordered. Run the simulation. When they did, the results shocked them. The humans' version won in half the time with fewer losses. That night, Scilyra sat alone, thinking about what had just happened. Humanity's youngest fighter had done what her empire's brightest minds could not. And for the first time she wondered, were humans truly lesser? Or were they something the galaxy had underestimated for too long? Later that evening, as Elias returned to his quarters, he noticed a shadow moving behind him. Before he could react, something cold touched his neck, a blade. A whisper came from behind. "Leave the princess alone, human," the voice hissed, "or you'll die before the next sunrise." Elias turned quickly, but the attacker vanished into the shadows. When he told Xylera, she looked genuinely concerned. "My court grows restless," she said. "They fear you." "They fear what you represent," Elias smiled faintly. "Then I must be doing something right." She stared at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "Do not die, human. I have not yet learned everything I need to understand about you." Outside the palace, the alien citizens whispered in the streets. Some said the human had bewitched the princess. Others said the princess had fallen in love with him. But one thing was certain, change was coming. The morning sun rose over Varex Prime, casting golden light across the crystal towers of the royal palace. The air buzzed with whispers, both in the palace and across the city. Word had spread quickly. The human Elias Trent had survived the trials of species and had even impressed Princess Xylera. For many in the Empire, this was unacceptable. Respect and loyalty were sacred. Aliens obeyed hierarchy without question. A human who fought, argued, and survived without fear threatened the very order of their society. Xylera herself felt the tension growing. Advisors whispered in corridors. Soldiers glanced nervously at Elias when he passed. Even the Emperor had sent another short message. "The human fascinates you, daughter. Observe him, but do not let him disrupt your duty. Test his loyalty. Ensure he remains under your control." The princess did not reply. She had already made her choice. She would not allow fear or hierarchy to decide who Elias was. That afternoon, the council gathered. The room was massive, lined with energy shields and armored statues. Aliens of every shape and size crowded in. At the center stood a figure feared across the galaxy: the Royal Executioner. The Executioner was enormous, a towering cyborg warrior whose armor was etched with victories of the Varex Empire. Its arms were heavy, ending in spinning blades that could slice a starship in half. Its glowing eyes scanned the room, pausing briefly on Elias. "You will fight him," Xylera announced. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "Survive and you will prove your loyalty to the Empire and to me." Elias's eyebrows rose. "Wait, loyalty? You already said I'm yours. Now I have to fight this thing?" The room laughed. Aliens whispered to each other, mocking the human. Some even cheered. "Let him die," one hissed. "That will teach your princess humility." Xylera ignored them. She had made a decision long before. Loyalty was not about obedience. Loyalty was about trust earned through courage. And if Elias could survive this trial, he would have earned her complete respect. Elias was led to the arena. The floor was a mix of metal and glowing energy panels. Sparks flew from damaged sections. Overhead, alien spectators filled the floating platforms, cheering and waiting for blood. The executioner entered with a mechanical roar. Each step shook the ground. Elias, barely a human-sized figure compared to the cyborg, took a deep breath. He had no illusions. This fight would not be easy. But he remembered what his father had told him on Earth. Courage is not absence of fear. It is fighting despite it, he nodded to himself. "All right, let's see what you've got." The fight began. The executioner lunged, spinning its massive blade arm. Elias ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding the first strike. Sparks flew where the blades scraped the arena floor. The crowd erupted in cheers and gasps. Elias observed carefully. The executioner's attacks were powerful but predictable. Its left arm moved slower than the right. Its jumps were heavy and telegraphed. Every move left a trace of energy behind. He memorized each pattern. The cyborg roared and swung both arms, trying to crush him. Elias dodged, weaving between the spinning blades. His body ached, but his mind was sharp. Then he noticed an opening, a joint in the armor behind its left shoulder. A weak point, he smiled faintly. Humans were small, fast, and smart. Maybe strength mattered, but skill and wit mattered more. Elias picked up a broken energy panel from the floor and threw it as a distraction. The executioner paused, calculating. Elias charged, dodged, and struck the joint with his baton. Sparks flew. The cyborg roared, but its movement slowed. The crowd gasped. This human, the smallest competitor ever, was holding his ground. Xylera watched from her balcony, her blue eyes glowing with admiration. The human had survived every challenge thrown at him, and now he fought the Empire's deadliest warrior. Yet he did not fight blindly, he adapted. He observed, calculated, and acted. Her advisors muttered angrily. "The princess is being fooled," one said. "The human is nothing. He will die." Xylera ignored them. He was more than nothing. He was the proof of what humanity could do when underestimated. The fight continued. Elias was pushed to the edge. Sparks scorched his robes. The executioner slammed him into the wall, leaving him bruised and battered. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye. But he refused to yield. "Pathetic machine," he muttered, gritting his teeth. "Let's see if you can think outside your code." Using the arena itself, he dodged toward a section where energy conduits hung low. With a running jump, he grabbed a conduit and swung himself across the floor, tripping the executioner and causing it to crash into a wall. The lights flickered. The crowd was silent for a moment, then erupted in cheers. Elias didn't pause. He ran, climbed, and used every weak point he had noticed. The executioner staggered, slowed, and finally fell to one knee. The human, bruised but alive, pressed forward. Finally, Elias struck the final blow, and energy surged to the cyborg's core. Sparks, smoke, and mechanical shrieks filled the arena. The executioner collapsed, defeated. The arena was quiet. Then slowly, thousands of aliens erupted in applause. Some cheered, some bowed, some whispered in awe. The impossible had happened. The smallest, youngest human had defeated the deadliest warrior of the Empire. Xylera descended to the arena floor, moving past guards who stared at her in shock. She approached Elias, who was breathing heavily but smiling faintly. "You fought not just for yourself," she said softly. "You fought for the truth that strength is more than muscle and loyalty is more than obedience." Elias shrugged. "I fight because I have to. That's what humans do." The princess looked at him with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. For centuries, the Empire had valued hierarchy above all. Power was proof. Loyalty was demanded. But here was a human who had rewritten both rules with courage and intelligence. "You have proven your loyalty, and something more," Xylera whispered. "You have proven your humanity." But the victory was not without consequences. As they returned to the palace, whispers followed them like shadows. Advisors argued in secret. Some said Xylera had been manipulated by the human. Others said the princess was foolish, allowing a mere boy to gain influence. In the council chamber, Kareth, her most loyal advisor, confronted her. "My princess, this human is dangerous. He defies our rules, our traditions. If you continue to favor him, the Empire will crumble." Xylera met his glare calmly. "Do you think the Empire is strong because of rules alone? Or because it values true courage? Elias has shown me what the galaxy has ignored for too long. Strength comes in many forms." Kareth's claws clenched. "He is a human. He will betray us." Xylera shook her head. "No, he fights for honor, something the Empire has forgotten." That night, Xylera visited Elias in his chambers. He was cleaning his weapons and patching wounds from the fight. "You fought well today," she said, leaning against the doorway. "You survived the trial of loyalty. Most would have died, but you thrived." Elias looked up. "I didn't fight to survive. I fought because it was right. Because if I didn't, someone else would have to face them blindly." Xylera smiled faintly. "I see why I chose you. You are not like anyone I have ever met." He chuckled softly. "I hope that's a compliment, princess." "It is," she said. "And yet, you still frighten me. You make me question everything I know about my people, my empire, and myself." Elias shrugged. "Good. Maybe you needed to be questioned." Outside the palace, the Varric citizens whispered in the streets. Word of the humans' victory over the royal executioner spread like fire. Some cheered for Elias, the boy who defied a machine built to kill gods. Others murmured fears. What did it mean if a human could surpass even the strongest of the Empire? In her private chambers, Xylera stared at the stars. The galaxy had shifted in a single day. A human had fought, survived, and won. A human had forced her, the Princess of Varric, to rethink everything she believed about strength, loyalty, and honor. And somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The Empire might see Elias as a threat, but for Xylera he was a revelation, a spark, a symbol that humanity, underestimated and overlooked, might change the galaxy, and that she wanted to stand by him when it did. The city of Varix Prime never slept. Even in the dark hours, ships glided through the skies. Energy lights shimmered across towering buildings, and distant alarms occasionally echoed from military stations. But now a quieter tension spread through the palace and the streets. The Emperor had noticed the shift. Soldiers were hesitant. Officers argued among themselves. Rumors of a human influencing the princess reached even the highest towers of power. And for the first time in centuries, fear and uncertainty crept into the Varix Empire. Inside the palace, Princess Xylera and Elias Trent met in the shadowed corners of the royal gardens. Crystal flowers glowed faintly under alien moonlight, and a soft wind whispered through the palace towers. "This is dangerous," Elias said softly, scanning the nearby corridors. "If your father discovers what we're doing, he won't hesitate to end us." Xylera looked at him, her eyes glowing a faint silver. "I know, but waiting and doing nothing will end us too. The Empire is crumbling from within. The soldiers respect courage, not tradition, and they see it in you." Elias nodded. "So what do we do?" She placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "We lead them. Not with orders, but with action. We show them that loyalty can mean courage, justice, and honor. That's what you taught me." He smiled faintly, though his body was still battered from the previous trials. "I guess that makes us rebels?" Xylera laughed softly. "Or revolutionaries. Depends on who survives." The first step was simple but dangerous. They had to gain the trust of soldiers who had quietly admired Elias's victories in the arena. Many were hesitant, fearing the Emperor's wrath. But when Elias trained them, showing them Earth's techniques, improvisation in combat, and the human skill of using their environment, they began to see a new path. One soldier, a towering alien named Vorin, approached Elias after a training session. "I have served the Empire for 70 cycles," he said, his voice deep and cautious. "But today I see a way to fight for something real. If you lead, human, I follow." Elias clapped him on the shoulder. "Then let's make sure we win, Vorin. And let's make sure we do it smart." Word spread quietly through the barracks. Small groups began secretly rallying to Elias and Xylera's cause. Humans were few, but their methods inspired alien soldiers to rethink everything. For the first time, unity formed not out of fear but respect. But not all news traveled quietly. The Emperor soon learned of the whispers and subtle defiance. From his command tower, he summoned Xylera. His voice boomed through the palace halls. "Daughter, report. Why do I hear rumors that the human boy influences your officers?" Xylera stood tall, her eyes steady. "Father, he has proven himself in battle. He has earned respect, and with respect comes influence. He is not a threat to you or to me. He is a teacher for the Empire." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Do not speak to me as if you understand the galaxy. That human is a weak creature. You cannot allow him to sway your judgment." Xylera's voice was firm. "Perhaps he is weak in size, but he is strong where it matters. And perhaps it is time for the Empire to learn a new kind of strength." The Emperor's face darkened. "Then you leave me no choice. Prove his loyalty to the Empire or face the consequences." That night, Elias was summoned to Xylera's chambers. She explained the next test. He had to face the Emperor's elite guards in a controlled exercise, one that many previous champions had failed. It was designed not to kill but to humiliate and test obedience. Elias listened quietly. "So the Empire thinks they can scare me into submission?" he asked. Xylera shook her head. "They want to see if you follow blindly. If you fail, they will move against us both. But I believe in you. And so do the soldiers who trust you." He grinned. "Then let's give them a show." The next day, the training arena was filled with elite guards. They were armed with plasma spears, energy shields, and combat enhancements. Their eyes glinted with pride and arrogance, certain they would crush the human. Elias stepped forward calmly. "I don't want to fight you," he said to the group. "I want to show you a better way. Fight with me, not against me." The guards laughed. A few attacked immediately. Elias moved like a shadow, dodging and deflecting every strike. He used his small size to his advantage, striking weak points in armor, using speed and momentum, and turning their attacks against them. Within minutes, the elite squad was disarmed and exhausted. Some lay on the ground panting and angry. Others stared at Elias in shock. He wasn't just surviving, he was winning without cruelty. Xylera watched with a mixture of pride and awe. "He fights not to dominate," she whispered to herself, "but to inspire." By the end of the exercise, several guards stepped forward. "We will follow you," they said. "Not because the princess told us, but because we see what you teach." With this momentum, Xylera and Elias began to plan a larger rebellion. Secret meetings were held in shadowed corridors. Hidden training sessions occurred under the glow of the city lights, and coded messages spread through loyal soldiers. One night, while studying star charts in the war room, Xylera spoke softly. "Elias, this will be dangerous. If my father discovers what we are doing, he will not hesitate to destroy the city and everyone in it." Elias placed a hand over hers. "I know, but we've already won something. We've shown that loyalty can be earned. That courage matters. That's more than most leaders ever achieve." She looked at him, and for the first time she admitted something. I trust you more than anyone in this empire, not because of your victories, but because of who you are." Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure we both survive long enough to finish this." The rebellion began quietly but spread rapidly. Aliens inspired by Elias's tactics and courage began questioning old orders. Soldiers refused to attack civilians. Officers began proposing smarter, less brutal strategies. The emperor's authority weakened, not because of fear, but because the people began to see a new path. In one dramatic moment, a squad of emperor-loyal soldiers tried to arrest Xylera in the royal gardens. Elias appeared with 50 loyal soldiers, both human and alien. Using careful tactics and minimal force, he disarmed the attackers without killing them. Word spread instantly. The human had protected the princess and the empire's citizens without cruelty. Xylera's advisors were stunned. For centuries, power had been enforced through fear. Now courage and intelligence had replaced it. But the emperor would not be ignored. He sent a fleet of warships to orbit the palace, demanding that Xylera surrender Elias. In response, she called a secret meeting of the loyalists. "This is no longer just about survival," she told them. "It is about the future of our empire. We will fight not to conquer, but to protect. We will fight with honor, and we will fight together, with humans and aliens side by side." Elias stepped forward. "I never wanted to be a leader. But if this is the only way to save lives, then I will fight. And together we will change the empire from the inside out." The room erupted in agreement. Soldiers of all races pledged their loyalty, not to the empire as it had been, but to the vision of an empire that valued courage, honor, and unity. That night, Xylera and Elias stood on the palace balcony, overlooking the glowing city. Ships moved silently above, and the wind carried faint sounds of preparation from the barracks. Xylera whispered, "Do you realize what we are doing? We are about to defy centuries of tradition. We are about to ignite a war against the emperor himself." Elias smiled faintly. "I know, and I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else." She looked at him, her blue eyes reflecting the starlight. "I never expected to care for a human like this, but I do. You've changed me. You've changed my empire, and I think, together we might just change the galaxy." He placed a hand over hers. "Then let's make sure the galaxy remembers that humans and those who believe in them never back down." The dawn of rebellion had begun. The empire might have had fleets, warriors, and tradition on its side, but courage, intelligence, and unity were a force the emperor had never expected. The next morning came with thunder in the skies. Heavy clouds covered the twin suns of Verex Prime, and lightning flashed above the grand palace towers. It felt as if the heavens themselves were warning that war was coming. In the war room, Princess Xylera stood in front of the glowing map of her father's empire. Red lights marked the emperor's loyal fleets surrounding the capital. Blue lights marked the rebel positions, small, scattered but growing fast. Elias Trent, the youngest human fighter who had once been only a prisoner, now stood beside her wearing battle armor made by alien engineers and improved with human ideas. His eyes were calm, but his voice was strong. "So this is it," Elias said. "The final stand." Xylera nodded slowly. "My father is bringing every ship he controls. If we fail today, there will be no tomorrow." Elias looked at her with a small smile. "Then let's make sure we don't fail." The rebellion forces gathered in the city's main plaza. Thousands of soldiers, both alien and human, stood together under the new banner Xylera had created, a silver flame on a dark field, symbolizing courage born from unity. Elias stepped forward and spoke through the communicator so that everyone across the city could hear his words. "Listen to me," he said. "I am human, born on a small world you once thought weak. But weakness teaches us how to stand. We fight today not because we hate the Emperor, but because we believe the galaxy can be better than fear and chains. You are not slaves to power. You are protectors of hope. So fight smart, fight with heart, and never forget what we stand for. Cheers shook the air. The soldiers raised their weapons high, and for the first time aliens and humans stood as one army. High above them, the Emperor watched from the command deck of his flagship, the Varex Eternal. His crimson armor glowed under the lights. His face was cold, his voice colder. "My daughter has betrayed me," he said. "The human has infected her mind with weakness. Prepare the orbital cannons. I will burn this rebellion to ashes." An officer hesitated. "But, sire, there are civilians in the city." The Emperor turned slowly, eyes glowing with rage. "The Empire is built on obedience, not mercy. Fire." The officer obeyed. Massive energy beams shot from the sky toward the planet's surface. But at the last moment, a bright blue shield flared above the city. The rebels had activated a stolen planetary defense field. The beam struck, exploded, but failed to break through. The city survived. Elias looked up at the sky and shouted, "Now! Strike back!" Dozens of small rebel ships launched from hidden hangars. They were old, mismatched, but fast. Elias had helped upgrade them with human-style tactics, unexpected maneuvers, low-altitude runs, and teamwork instead of blind attack patterns. As the fleet clashed above the planet, Elias took command of the ground defenses. His tactical mind guided artillery, drones, and infantry in perfect sync. Alien commanders followed his orders without question. On the palace balcony, Xylera watched the battle unfold. Her heart pounded, torn between love for her father and her loyalty to the people. She whispered, "Please, Father, surrender before it's too late." But deep down, she knew the Emperor would never surrender. Hours passed. The battle grew fierce. Explosions painted the sky in burning colors. Both sides fought bravely, but the Emperor's fleet was far stronger. Inside the rebel command center, alarms flashed red. One officer shouted, "We've lost the western defense grid." Another cried, "Their flagship is moving into firing range." Ilias gritted his teeth. "We can't win by standing still. We have to take the fight to him." Xylera turned sharply. "You mean to board his ship?" He nodded. "If we take down the Emperor, the fleet will fall apart. He's the head. Cut it off and the body stops fighting." Xylera stepped closer, her voice shaking. "That's suicide," Elias smiled softly. "Maybe, but sometimes the only way to save a world is to risk everything." She grabbed his hand. "Then I'm going with you." He looked into her eyes. "If we both die, who leads them after?" She held his hand tighter. "If you die, there is no future worth leading." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Elias nodded. "All right, we go together." Using a stolen Imperial shuttle, Elias and Xylera flew through the chaos toward the Emperor's flagship. Enemy ships fired at them, but rebel pilots formed a protective wall, sacrificing themselves to cover their path. When they landed in the hangar, dozens of Imperial guards awaited them. Elias drew his plasma rifle. "You handle the left, I'll take the right." They moved like one mind. Xylera fought with her glowing spear, her strikes fast and elegant. Elias moved low, using cover and surprise, disarming enemies instead of killing when he could. The hangar floor was soon littered with defeated guards. They pushed forward deeper into the flagship, toward the Emperor's throne chamber. When the doors opened, the Emperor sat waiting, surrounded by energy flames. His armor glowed red like molten metal. "So," he said darkly, "the child of Varex and the human insect come to challenge me." Xylera stepped forward. "Father, stop this. You're destroying everything you built." He stood towering over both of them. "I built an empire of power. You would turn it into an empire of weakness. You disappoint me." Elias stepped beside her. "Power means nothing if your people live in fear." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "And what do you know of power, human?" Elias raised his rifle. "Enough to stand against it." The room exploded in motion. The Emperor struck first, his energy blade slashing across the floor. Elias rolled aside, returning fire. Xylera joined the fight, blocking her father's strikes with her spear. The clash of family and ideals echoed through the massive hall. The Emperor's strength was immense, but he underestimated something: the bond between Xylera and Elias. Every time the Emperor attacked one, the other defended. Every time he advanced, they countered together. At last, the Emperor disarmed Elias with a brutal hit, sending him crashing to the floor. He raised his blade for the final strike, but Xylera screamed, "No!" and threw herself between them. Her spear clashed with his blade, and for the first time she overpowered him. "You taught me that strength comes from within," she shouted. "You were wrong, it comes from those we fight for." With one last strike, she shattered her father's weapon. The energy blade flickered and died. The Emperor fell to his knees, gasping, his armor cracked. "My own blood turns against me." Xylera knelt beside him. "Not against you, father. Against your cruelty. Please, end this war." He looked at Elias, then back at her. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Finally, the Emperor whispered, "Perhaps I was blind." And with that, he deactivated his armor and fell silent. Outside, the fleet stopped firing. The Emperor's death signal spread through every ship, and the fighting slowed, then ceased completely. The rebels and Imperial soldiers alike stared at their screens in confusion. Then slowly, they began to lower their weapons. Elias limped to the control panel and sent a broadcast. "This war is over," he said. "No more fighting. No more fear. From today, the Varex Empire will rise again, but this time built on unity, courage, and peace." Across the skies, soldiers of every race cheered. Weeks later, the rebuilding began. The city was alive again. Statues of old conquerors were replaced with monuments to unity, and in the royal gardens, Elias and Xylera stood side by side, looking over the shining skyline of the new world they had created. Xylera smiled. "You changed everything, Elias. The people love you. They even call you the Heart of Varex." He laughed softly. "I'm just a soldier who got lucky." She looked at him with warmth. "No, you're the reason we survived. You taught us what it means to be strong without cruelty." He turned to her. "And you showed me that even in the darkest galaxy, light can still grow." She stepped closer. "So what now, human fighter? Will you return to Earth?" Elias looked out at the stars. "Maybe one day. But for now, I think my place is here, with you." Xylera smiled. "Then let the galaxy remember this day. The day a human and a princess changed the stars together. Above them, the twin suns broke through the clouds, bathing the world in golden light. For the first time in history, the Empire of Varex was ruled not by fear but by hope.